Thanks for joining us today, Almeta. I'm really excited to
My
be here
pleasure.
and to chat with you about some of the work that you're doing. So, I guess, first of all, for those of us who aren't necessarily following the clean air space super closely right now, what is it that Mom's Clean Air Force does, and what do you do there? And what are some of the big issues that you're dealing with right now?
Well, Moms Clean Air Force is a national organization of about 1.5 million moms, dads, and caregivers, and we're focused on protecting children's health and clean air. And we do that through our membership and through our field organizers who are in about 17 or 18 states and also in the District of Columbia. We really encourage our members to take action. That's our byline, that we want people to be in contact with, whether it's administrative agencies or local officials or federal officials, to let them know that this issue is important to us in terms of clean air and reducing pollution. And we have a special emphasis on making sure that there's justice in every breath, meaning that we really focus on making sure that the communities that are disproportionately harmed by pollution, Black and brown and low wealth communities, receive the attention and make sure that we try to reduce the harmful effects, health effects, particularly in those communities. And I'm the national manager for health equity, so I'm particularly focused on the relationship between climate and health, and particularly health equity, which unfortunately a lot of people just don't make that connection. But there have been a number of both local, national, and international studies and reports that say that climate change is the greatest existential threat to health over the next 50 years.
I know I had been hearing some chatter about an acronym MATS, Mercury and Air Toxic Standards, and I was wondering if you could explain to me and to whoever's viewing what is that and why does it matter? Why are we talking about it right now?
Well, I think it's probably easiest to think in terms of the fact that the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, is responsible for enforcing the Clean Air Act. And underneath the Clean Air Act, there are a number of different pollutants that the EPA seeks to regulate. And in the last year, the EPA has had multiple regulations that they have been updating, which some had not been updated for quite a while, for at least 4 years. And with the MATS rule, the light duty and light cars and light duty vehicles, heavy duty vehicles, including electric school buses, and then the particle pollution and also power plants. There have been quite a few rules that have been up for public comment this year. So basically what the EPA does is they look at the rules using their technical resources, and then they invite comments from everyone, from the public, regardless of whether you are a parent or an individual who's affected by bad air or lack of clean air, and invite people to let them know why this is important and how it's affecting them. From Mom's standpoint, we very often, although we're not the technical experts, we do believe in science, and we get our members and to communicate to EPA, both in writing and in public testimony, to say this particular, for example, with mercury, this particular pollutant, this is how it affects people. This is typically what you find is that children, pregnant women, and people 65 years and older are the most harmed by any of these pollutants, and encourage the EPA to adopt the strongest possible standards.
You're a DMV resident, right?
Yes, I am.
So what is going on at the local level that people should know about when it comes to not just mercury and air toxics, but air pollution in general in our region, especially, right now it's top of mind after the code red alert yesterday.
Yeah, well, like many local municipalities or local areas, in DC, we do have a department that works with the EPA on environment, and they do post information regarding air quality. So, as you just mentioned, unfortunately, yesterday we had an unhealthy state, a red alert, which is one of the it is a status where the air is so unhealthy that basically you either need to have on a mask or you should stay indoors. And you probably, I know from some of the articles that you've written that locally we've seen some of the baseball games were postponed. Children who were in summer camp were it had restricted activities just because the quality of the air was so poor that it was not really safe. That's an unhealthy state of the air, particularly the last several days. The 29th was an orange day. The 29th was a red code. The day before that was orange, and I believe we're back to orange today. But still, all of those are caution states that really the only positive about the seriousness of the weather, it has made people aware of and begin thinking about that we really need to be concerned about the quality of our air.
Are there specific issues locally that Mom's Clean Air Force has been involved in terms of, I don't know, specific plants or issues that are really local to the DMV?
Well, the main thing that we are facing in the DMV is traffic. Transportation sector is responsible for about one quarter to a third of all pollution, air and climate pollution. And as anyone knows who lives here in the DMV, we have lots of traffic. So that is our, unlike some other parts of the country where they have power plants that are in the near vicinity, transportation is really our big concern. And that's one of the reasons that Moms Clean Air Force has been such an advocate for electric vehicles and for electric school buses in particular because of our focus on children.
What are some of the main health impacts that come from the traffic related air pollution, and also what are some of the equity implications of where in the district and nationally we've decided to put our highways and stuff?
Well, from well, asthma with children, asthma is the leading chronic disease for children in the United States, and it's true here in the DMV as well. And when the air quality is poor, it's even more difficult for any child or any adult, for that matter, who's suffering with asthma. And I'm sorry, could you repeat what the second part of that question was?
I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the equity implications of our
Yes.
transportation infrastructure.
So, one of the problems is that very often the neighborhoods that are closest to high traffic areas are low wealth Black and Brown communities. That is the nature of the historical legacy that we have from racism and from the unfortunate policies such as redlining, where Black and Brown people were forced into to reside in certain communities. And those communities tend to be closest to highways, closest to places where heavy duty vehicles are parked and where they idle. And so all of that exhaust is, in concentration in these neighborhoods. So um, also in the Biden administration, you may be aware of, and some of your listeners and readers may be aware of, that the Biden administration has had a policy called Justice 40, where we're really trying to reduce the disproportionate impact on these communities of policies throughout the government. And in regard to air pollution and to what the EPA is doing in terms of trying to strengthen many of these standards that are underneath the Clean Air Act, is to make sure that these communities have a voice in making sure that the standards are strengthened and that people are aware that they are being have health harms that are directly related. So asthma is probably the number one thing that most people are familiar with, but they also can affect anyone with any type of pre-existing condition that would compromise their health. And in particular, you also will find out that there is an impact people who have cardiovascular disease as well, heart disease.
Right. How can people get involved if they're listening to this and maybe looking out the window, seeing all the haze and thinking, "Oh man, we really should do something about this."
Well,
What do you recommend?
the simplest thing to do is to come to our website at www.momscleanairforce.org. That's www.momscleanairforce.org. And we have a wealth of resources and materials. We have the ability where you can link up if you are not in the DMV, for example, and you just wanted to find out where there is a mom's field coordinator, or just to get we have a resource library so you can find out any information you want to have. And also, we want to encourage you to be in contact with your local officials. We always have petitions that you can access on our website, and we make it very easy for you to be able to have that your comment or your sign-on sent directly to your affected local official.
Amazing. Is there anything we haven't covered today that you think it's really important for our listeners to know about in terms of what Moms Clean Air Force is doing and the air pollution that affects their lives?
Well, one of the number one kind of barriers to really taking action regarding pollution, regarding clean air, is that even though there are many studies that show that the majority of the people in this country are in favor of clean air, are in favor of protecting the health of children, we don't talk about it enough. And one of the very first steps that you have to take is be informed and then talk about and let other people know what your concerns are. Not only your elected officials, but also talk to your friends and neighbors. And of course, we encourage people to join Moms Clean Air Force because we believe we're very effective in raising these issues and making sure they get in front of our elected officials.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to chat with you, Almeta, and I hope we have you on again to talk about air pollution going forward. I'm sure, unfortunately, that we're going to see more air pollution stories come in going forward, especially this summer with the wildfires in Canada.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.